Okay, so I just left the truck 30 seconds ago. It's right there. This is the 2022 Honda CRF450RX. I have just I just did this loop on the 250. And now I'm going to attempt to do the same loop on the 450.
That's right, here we go. So I'm on the 450, and this is one of the things that I was so excited about doing when I decided to get the 250 and the 450 version, because I'm able to kind of compare and see what I can learn about these bikes and about the motors and about myself also. Want to plug in here, hey, if you're watching this in March, go ahead and go to dirtbikechannel.com and get entered to win my GasGas and this KTM 65. Go to my website and get that done. The other thing I'm assaulting you with all these things on the screen. You can see up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen here, there is that 250, the same run on the 250. Now, I did the 250 earlier, so this is maybe an hour earlier. The 250, the little picture-in-picture up on the right, that's me riding the same place on the 250, and I started a little bit faster on the 250. I noticed as I was going through here, I'm a little bit more laid back. I can just tell in my riding as I get going here. I'm just kind of talking, and on the 450, I don't really have quite as much intensity for the first little section of this, the first maybe minute and a half. But then what'll happen is I'm just riding. I'm not pushing on either bike. I'm just going with the flow. And and you can see here that they end up matching each other. So where I am, like on the 250 right there, the 250 and the 450, if you click that, I'm within, I overlaid them, started them at the exact same position on the trail, and I'm already just kind of like going along and doing the same type of a lap or a pace here. And one of the things I think is so interesting about that is it doesn't seem to matter what bike I ride, I tend to ride the same speed, generally speaking. So it doesn't matter whether, I'm on a 200 two-stroke or a 125 two-stroke or a 450 four-stroke. Generally speaking, I'm just riding the same pace all the time. And that's been a really, really fun thing to see in my riding. Yeah, so let's talk about some of the things that I noticed in switching between the 250 and the 450 on this particular day. Now, this trail has kind of a good mix of some faster speed stuff, which you're seeing right now, and then on the opposite side of the loop, which will not be in today's video, there's some slower stuff. Now, these bikes are not like slow speed style bikes. These are fast bikes that are meant to go in faster terrain. And so that's mostly what I'm doing. There's a couple spots where I stalled it in some different tricky situations, but that's not what the bike is made for. If I'm going to go in tricky situations, I'm going to be on a two-stroke. But here are some of the notes that I compiled after I was done with today's ride as I just kind of contemplated on it. The first thing is that the power of the 250 on this Honda CRF450RX is very smooth. And it allows you to relax a little bit more when you're on the bike. I didn't even notice that until I got on the 450. And on the 250, I was using the hot map, like the most aggressive map, like the map 3. That's the map that I like the best on the 250. And for a lot of the time, I was actually running the 450 on the soft map. I didn't even realize it. So today, on this ride today, I switched it back to map number 1, which is the standard map. And there is so much power on that 450 in the standard map that, yeah, it's fun, but it kind of puts you on edge a little bit, if that makes sense. So when you're cooking through on the 250, the power is smooth, it's jumpy, it allows you to just kind of go. You're not worried about the throttle control, and you can get into the throttle a little bit more. Compare that to the power of the 450. It's amazing, but it kind of keeps you on edge, and you have to maintain closer attention to maintain control and sometimes even to just keep your front wheel on the ground. There's a difference between going fast because you're wheeling and actually going fast like forward. And so much of this about our riding is smooth as fast. And so in order to maintain that same level of smoothness in my riding, I had to be more mentally focused. It felt like I had to be a little bit sharper on the 450 because anytime, like going through this stuff, anytime you would hit like a little weird bump or something, like the bike would want to kind of lurch. If you hit the throttle, if it bumped your throttle at all, it would kind of lurch you forward, and that kind of puts you off balance into some little, maybe a line that you don't want to be in. And so that was really interesting to see because I had done the loop first on the 250, got into kind of a groove on that, and then immediately just went back to the truck, started the 450, same pressure on the tires and everything, started the 450, warmed it up, and then started to go. And immediately I could feel that I was a little bit having to be more careful because the power, I was having to respect the power of the 450 more, which was taking a little bit more out of me mentally. I know that sounds weird, like, okay, you're going to take a little bit more out of you mentally. We always talk about 450s kind of wearing you out physically, which they can, especially in certain situations. But in this case, I noticed that mental fatigue just a little bit, and it's something that I didn't anticipate. Another thing, obviously, and this is going to be pretty obvious to people, but I could be a little bit more lazy with my shifts on the 450. And I think this is one of the reasons why people like the 450 so much. A, they just don't want to be leaving. They bought this $10,000 motorcycle. They don't want to be getting a small bike that doesn't have the power. I understand why people go to the 450s because they're like, oh, I want to get the best bang for the buck, and I'll just ride the 450 differently. I'll just switch to a softer map. I'll just use throttle control, and then it'll be great. The problem with that is what we don't realize is what we're leaving on the 450s in so many cases can be more taxing to ride than the 250s. You can ride a 250, at least for me. I mean, I can ride both. I really like both these bikes, and they offer some really, really distinct advantages, each one of them. But you've got to just know that 450 is going to take a little bit more out of you mentally and physically in order to ride the thing smooth, even though your shifts can be lazy. So people like that. It's nice to be able to just kind of stick in third gear no matter what and just roll on the throttle on the 450, and that is kind of nice. But I was relaxing more on the 250. I could let the trail come to me a little bit more, whereas I had to focus more on what I was doing on the 450. Here's another thing that was kind of interesting. As I got into some of the little bit more technical stuff, this one surprised me. It seemed like the 450 was a little bit better in the slower, more technical stuff. And it obviously it tractors through things a little bit better. They were both a little bit lurchy in the slower, rocky stuff, but the 450 just seemed to kind of handle that a little bit better. It seemed to be a little bit less susceptible from stalling. And maybe it required a little less attention to the clutch, maybe not too super surprising, but a little less attention on the clutch on the 450 to keep the thing running. I also will say that the 450 clutch has more feel and to me seems more consistent. Now, it's important to note that the 450 on this Honda, they went with a hydraulic, I'm snapping my fingers here. They went with a hydraulic clutch on the 450, and it's a cable clutch on the 250. And I adjusted my throw on the 250 because all the engagement was on the 250 was out at the end of the lever, and I adjusted that in a little bit so I could get just closer to my liking. But I did feel like I had better feel and a little bit better controllability with the clutch on the 450 just because it was hydraulic. And I'm a fan of hydraulic clutches. Everyone has their own opinions. There's nothing wrong with the standard cable clutch, but when you've used a hydraulic clutch, I just think they're more fun. I think you have a better feel with them. Not that they're more fun. I just think you have a better feel with the hydraulic clutches. There's a reason why most of the bikes have been moving towards that. Another thing, and this will be no surprise to anyone, but the hill climbs, there were some hill climbs. I didn't show any hill climbs on this video, but there were some hill climbs right where I actually parked the truck. I did the hill climbs on both bikes. Obviously, it was much more fun on the 450 because you just have so much power. You're just halfway up a hill and you just hit the gas and the thing like wheelies all the way up the hill. You can get up basically any of the hills that any of the stuff I did, you could do it totally fine on the 250. But it was more fun to do some of these hill climbs on the 450. So I mean, man, if I was gonna pick which bike was better for me in this area on this day out in the desert, they're both amazingly good. if I was just, I don't want to spoil it because so many people are saying, oh, well, you just take the 250 for sure. You're not a 450 guy. Don't be too sure about that. My heart is pulling me towards this 450 for out here in the desert, but the 250 was also amazing. So there will be a bunch more content to come, and hopefully you guys are having a good day and leave a single track. Thanks.